Today we are looking at one of the most serious geopolitical crises unfolding in the world right now. The rapidly escalating confrontation between Iran and Israel that is beginning to reshape the entire Middle East. Over the past weeks, what started as targeted military actions has evolved into a much wider regional conflict involving multiple countries, proxy groups, and global powers. Missiles, drones, cyber operations, and economic pressure are all now part of this unfolding situation. With key shipping routes and energy supplies potentially at risk, governments and markets around the world are closely watching every development. The current phase of the conflict began when Israel launched a series of major military strikes against Iranian targets. According to reports, these strikes were aimed at critical military infrastructure, including missile bases, command centers, and facilities believed to be connected to Iran's nuclear program. The strikes reportedly targeted multiple locations across Iran, including areas around the capital, Tehran. These operations signaled one of the most direct confrontations between the two countries in recent history and marked a significant escalation beyond the shadow war that had been taking place for years. Iran quickly responded by launching waves of retaliatory attacks using ballistic missiles and drones. These strikes were aimed not only at Israeli territory but also at military installations across the region. Air defense systems were activated across several countries as missiles and drones were detected moving across Middle Eastern airspace. Many of these projectiles were intercepted, but some managed to reach their targets, causing damage and raising alarm across the region. This rapid exchange of attacks showed that the conflict was no longer limited to a single battlefield. Another major development has been the involvement of regional armed groups aligned with Iran. One of the most significant among them is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Shortly after the first strikes, Hezbollah began launching rockets and drones toward northern Israel. These attacks opened a new front in the conflict and forced Israel to divide its military focus between different directions. Israeli forces responded with intense airstrikes targeting suspected Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon and other areas. The exchanges between both sides have continued, creating fears that a wider war between Israel and Hezbollah could erupt. At the same time, tensions have also been rising inside Israel and Iran as both sides continue their military campaigns. Iranian missile and drone launches have continued intermittently, targeting Israeli military facilities and strategic areas. Israel's advanced air defense systems have intercepted many incoming threats, but the attacks have still caused disruptions and heightened anxiety among civilians. Sirens and emergency alerts have become a common occurrence in several areas. Meanwhile, Israel has continued expanding its air campaign. Israeli aircraft and long-range weapons have reportedly struck a number of military targets across Iran. These operations appear designed to weaken Iran's ability to continue launching missiles and drones. Military analysts suggest that the goal is to reduce Iran's long-range strike capabilities and disrupt its command structure. The scale and intensity of these strikes indicate that the campaign is likely to continue for some time. One dramatic moment came when a large explosion occurred in Tehran during a public gathering. The blast shook parts of the city and quickly became one of the most widely discussed events related to the conflict. While details about the incident remain limited, the explosion highlighted how the confrontation between the two countries is now affecting major urban centers. Incidents like this increase fears that civilians could increasingly be caught in the middle of the conflict. Another critical dimension of the crisis involves the strategic waterways of the Persian Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important shipping routes in the world, carrying a significant portion of global oil supplies. Any threat to this route immediately attracts global attention. Iranian officials have warned that continued attacks could lead to actions affecting shipping traffic in the region. There have already been reports of heightened naval activity and increased security measures around commercial vessels passing through the area. These tensions have also begun to affect global energy markets. Oil prices have reacted to fears that disruptions to shipping routes could limit supply. Energy analysts say even the possibility of interference with major shipping lanes can cause prices to rise quickly. Shipping companies are also reviewing their routes, and some vessels have reportedly changed their course to avoid areas where military activity has increased. Across the wider region, Iran-aligned groups have also become more active. Several armed groups operating in countries such as Iraq have issued statements condemning Israeli actions and expressing support for Iran. Some of these groups have launched attacks targeting foreign military facilities in the region. These actions demonstrate how the conflict is spreading beyond the direct confrontation between Israel and Iran and becoming a broader regional struggle involving multiple actors. Israeli leaders have made clear that their military operations are intended to weaken Iran's strategic capabilities and limit its influence in the region. Officials argue that reducing Iran's missile program and restricting the activities of allied armed groups are necessary for Israel's long-term security. However, critics warn that these operations could also trigger an even larger escalation if other countries or groups become more deeply involved. The humanitarian consequences are also becoming increasingly serious. In areas affected by airstrikes and rocket attacks, civilians are facing displacement, infrastructure damage, and growing uncertainty about their safety. Communities near active conflict zones have been forced to leave their homes, and emergency services are working under extremely difficult conditions. Aid organizations are warning that the situation could worsen if the fighting continues to intensify. International reactions to the crisis have been swift. Governments around the world are calling for restraint and urging both sides to avoid further escalation. Diplomatic efforts are underway to prevent the conflict from spreading even further. At the same time, several countries have issued travel advisories for the Middle East, and airlines are adjusting flight routes to avoid areas where missile or drone activity has been reported. Financial markets are also responding to the uncertainty. Investors are closely monitoring developments because instability in the Middle East can affect global trade, energy prices, and economic confidence. Whenever tensions rise in the region, markets often react quickly due to the strategic importance of its resources and shipping routes. The coming days and weeks will likely be critical for determining how the situation evolves. One possible outcome is a prolonged conflict marked by continued missile strikes, air raids, and proxy battles across multiple fronts. Another possibility is that international diplomatic pressure could eventually bring both sides toward negotiations aimed at reducing hostilities. However, achieving such an outcome would require significant compromise and political willingness from all parties involved. There is also the risk that additional countries could become directly involved if attacks spread further or if key international interests are threatened. For example, any major disruption to global shipping or energy supplies could trigger broader international responses. Military analysts are therefore watching the situation very closely, as small developments could quickly lead to larger consequences. For now, the Iran-Israel confrontation remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global politics. What began as targeted military operations has grown into a complex regional conflict involving multiple fronts, alliances, and strategic interests. Missile exchanges, drone warfare, cyber operations, and economic pressure are all shaping this confrontation in real time. As the situation continues to evolve, the decisions made by leaders on all sides will play a crucial role in determining whether the region moves toward de-escalation or faces an even larger conflict. The world is watching closely as each new development unfolds, knowing that the outcome could influence not only the Middle East but also global stability in the months and years ahead.